wanted for first-degree murder that was issued in 2009 out of the state of New York. He was also under federal indictment for failure of a sex offender to register. The sad part is he was also a well-known Latin King gang member. So how did we get here today? This morning, the U.S. Marshals Task Force. The U.S. Marshals Task Force is a task force that's comprised of U.S. Marshals along with members of a local law enforcement community. These aren't individuals who go after any type of misdemeanor or civil infraction warrants. These are the individuals that leave their loved ones each and every day to go after some of the most heinous criminals that you could create in your mind. They receive information here today that this bad guy, who again has been on the run and eluding arrest since 2009, is here in the area. They bring their members out here and immediately start setting up surveillance. As they're setting up surveillance, they see our bad guy getting to the passenger side of a blue Acura. There's a driver who is his stepson, that's the driver, and then there's also a passenger sitting in the rear seat behind the bad guy. As they go to leave, the U.S. Marshals do an absolute superb job of making the conscious decision that, hey, this is a less traveled roadway. Let's conduct a tactical traffic stop here before this individual is able to get to a more populated area, putting other innocent lives in danger. What is a tactical traffic stop? That's when we box in an individual to make sure that there's no pursuit. It's an attempt to get a peaceful resolution and effect an arrest in every way possible. They box the individual in from the back, from the front. They activate their emergency equipment. The driver decides that, hey, my stepdad's not going to jail today. I'll get you out of here and continue that attempt to elude arrest. So he floors the car and rams the Polk County Sheriff's deputy's vehicle, who's the first in line behind him. They box him in even tighter and then exit the vehicle, knowing that at this point he can't go anywhere. The first to exit their vehicle and approach the bad guy's car is a Polk County Sheriff's deputy. He approaches the driver's side of the vehicle as two Tampa police officers take a strategic and tactical position on the passenger side. Our bad guy decides that he has, once again, exemplified he has no regard for human life, not even a family member, and he shoots across the inside of the car out the window trying to strike the Polk County Sheriff's deputy. The Polk County Sheriff's deputy returns fire. The two Tampa police officers who placed themselves willfully in this dangerous position, they discharged their firearms as well. They are able to remove the bad guy from the vehicle, and he died here at the scene. Our commitment to protect this community runs deep. Nothing will ever stop us from doing whatever it takes to keep the citizens we serve safe. I have to take just a moment and thank the U.S. Marshal Task Force. Again, individuals that don't make extra money but place themselves in danger each and every time they decide to place one of these dangerous criminals under arrest. Thank God none of them are injured here today. The driver of the vehicle who rammed the law enforcement vehicle behind him is Angel Torres Vallejo. He's 19 years of age. He has been charged here with a felony charge as well. At this point, at the investigation, as with all local Tampa Bay law enforcement uses of deadly force, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will now handle this investigation. At this time, I'll turn it over to Chief Lee Burkhall with the Tampa Police Department. Chief?
Thank you, Sheriff. As the Sheriff said, this is a true bad guy. I'm not going to repeat his name, but I'm going to repeat the history that he was involved in. History of ag assault, violent offender, rape, robbery, possession of a firearm, a primary suspect in a homicide from New York in 2009. Failure to register as a sex offender. Obviously armed, obviously not afraid to shoot at the police. Our officers were involved in the U.S. Marshals Task Force, just like the Sheriff said. This task force focuses on the violent offenders, the worst of the worst. After locating the suspect, the officers boxed in the vehicle. Like the sheriff had said, when I looked at this scene, I saw the vehicles positioned, and I looked at it and I go, wow, that's exactly like the training. The training that these officers receive on this task force is beyond what you could all imagine. They are the most trained and well-respected officers. And literally, it was textbook looking at the scene. The driver attempted to escape the box in. As the sheriff said, he reaches over and fires at a Polk deputy. And then 2 of our officers are also able to return fire to stop the threat. So our TPD officers that were involved are both experienced officers with over 20 years on the department and have been on this task force for some time. Every day, officers protect and serve their local community. The officers on this task force work in partnership to ensure the most dangerous criminals cannot harm themselves or any of our community members. These officers on this task force are some of the best trained heroes that this region has. They'll continue their commitment to keeping this community safe. Thank you. Sheriff.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Madam State Attorney Susie Lopez with the 13th Judicial Circuit. Susie?
Thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to start out by saying how thankful we are that all of the officers involved today are safe. They put their lives on the line every day to make our community a better place to live, and we're grateful that they are all safe. At this point, the investigation with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will begin, and it will continue. Evidence is collected and investigated, and once that is complete, my team and I will gather the information from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and we will determine to make sure all laws were followed, and we will finish our investigation. This will take some time, and so we ask for your patience as well as for your gratitude for these officers who put their lives on the line today and every day. Thank you.
And last, I'd like to introduce from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Jay Scanlon, whose team will be overseeing the investigation from this point forward. Jay?
Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, the scene is contained. There's no more threat to the public. We've now transitioned into the use of force investigation. This specifically is a use of force for the Marshals Task Force. FDLE maintains a statewide agreement with that task force to do their involved shootings, and of course that extends to any task force officers assigned to that task force. I do want to take a moment to thank the Marshal Service, Tampa Police Department, Polk County Sheriff's Office, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and the State Attorney's Office. They've been professional throughout this initial investigation. These types of responses for FDLE are dynamic and ever-changing, and it's critical that we have these partnerships and the buy-in from them. They understand fully that our role here is largely the public accountability piece, and I can assure you from our experience that all of these agencies involved are dedicated to that mission as well. Ms. Lopez referenced that once the investigation is complete, we will turn that over to their office for their review and determination of the use of force. Also, and I've said it before, I want to take the time to thank these agencies. You know, our members here at FDLE in this region live, work, our kids go to school nearby, and we thank them for their professionalism and working so well with us in these difficult cases. And the investigation is early on, so I'm hesitant to cover any details. We're still preliminary, gathering facts. So beyond what the sheriff and the chief offered, that'll be all for our statement today. Thank you.
Any questions for any of the four of us at this time? We'd be glad to answer.
Sheriff, are you able to describe at all the evidence in any depth at all about how you were led to this apartment complex, what type of tip you got that he would be here, and why you acted tonight?
Great question. Unfortunately, I can't. Just that the marshal's office received information that our bad guy or that wanted subject was here in the area.
What was he doing here in town, and had he committed any violent crimes in this community?
Another great question. That's something our team's working on. Our team's working on how long has he been here? Who's he related to? What's his connection here to Tampa Bay area? And then link back to any type of violent crimes. We'll certainly look into that and see if he happens to be a suspect in any of those crimes. So absolutely, a lot of work to be done from this point forward, and that's something that this part of the investigation that we will handle. Yeah, fortunately, the driver, again, the driver who could have surrendered and I think helped us with a more peaceful resolution, decided to continue the charade, continue the escape, and allow his stepdad to elude arrest, rammed the car. But fortunately, to answer your question, neither he nor the passenger in the rear of the vehicle who was seated behind the bad guy were injured in any way, shape, or form. Again, I think that goes to show you how well trained and educated law enforcement officers are this day. From 32 years ago to now, our officers have never been more trained or more educated. Educated and trained in de-escalation and trying to peacefully resolve a situation, but also in times like this, when an active assailant is going to try to hurt them, harm them, the way that they can protect themselves and others, they are prepared to do that as well. And I don't understand. I don't know if it's movies, I don't know if it's TV where they see the bad guy gets away, but I can promise you with how educated and trained Tampa Bay law enforcement is, I can almost promise anyone out there who feels they're going to attack a law enforcement officer, shoot at a law enforcement officer in an attempt to escape arrest or escape accountability for any type of crime they have, you're not going to see any different result than what you saw here today. If you shoot at law enforcement, there are real consequences. Not sure exactly what all the relationships are. Again, we're still working through that now. We're still working to positively identify the rear passenger, making sure we know. They had informed me that he's from New York as well, so it's taking a little extra work. So not sure what his criminal history is. Working through all those details as we speak. We have a lot of work to still do. That's a great question. To my knowledge, I believe every agency, every sheriff's office in this Tampa Bay and surrounding areas contributes at least one individual, some two, to members of the task force. And again, their sole purpose is to take a warrant of some of the most dangerous individuals, again, that your mind can create, and they're tasked with the tremendous responsibility of going to place those individuals under arrest. Yes, there's no jurisdiction when you've been deputized by the U.S. Marshals Task Force. They can be in Polk County, Hernando, Manatee. They go wherever the bad guy leads them.
What do you know about the crime in New York, this first-degree murder charge? What is he accused of? What details can you give us about that?
Yeah, we know that it's an arrest warrant for first-degree murder from 2009. I think that's what makes this so comforting, is that being on the run since 2009, this individual was finally taken into custody. This individual will never have the opportunity to victimize or harm another human being. Don't know that. This is the city of New York issues an arrest warrant. We want this person under arrest. They confirm the warrant. They actively pursue the individual, place them under arrest. Unfortunately, we're not given a lot of details at this point, just that, hey, here's his criminal history. We can, as Chief Burkhall explained, we can look at how violent and dangerous this individual is. We can see what the arrest warrant is. We don't know much more than that. Who's the victim, the circumstances surrounding it. Unfortunately, we don't have that type of information at this point.
How long did it take place from him seeing him get into the car from, the final moment?
Moved rather quickly. As they got here, set up surveillance, he got in the car and left, and again, I think made a wonderful decision. A half a mile, not a half a mile, maybe a block down the road, this could have happened in a much more populated area where it would have posed a danger to innocent lives. They did it here. Look, this is a roadway. Regardless of what type of weaponry was being discharged here, there was a good chance that whatever happened here was going to be contained here. And I commend the U.S. Marshals for the choice that they made.
Can you
Yes, the individual who lost their life here today, that was the bad guy who decided to try to elude arrest by shooting at law enforcement. Yeah, Don Robert Astor, A-S-T-O-R, white male, 39 years of age. And again, we'll be putting all this information out. Try one more time. There was only one passenger in the rear that was seated behind the car. He's not facing any charges. We haven't identified him yet. We don't know if he has warrants for his arrest. The driver, the stepson, is being placed under arrest for felony charges of ramming a police officer vehicle and fleeing to elude arrest. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.